These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do.
It has been studied, quoted, parodied, and argued about for decades. But even people who know it by heart have been missing things right from the very first frame. Here are 30 small details you missed in Full Metal Jacket, 1978.
It's just down the road in the platoon area.
You mind if we tag along, sir?
No problem. Welcome aboard. By the way, my name's...
Detail 30. The film was released in 1987, not 1978. The year in the title is a nod to the Vietnam era the film depicts, 1968, during the Tet Offensive. But Full Metal Jacket was released on June 26, 1987, by Warner Brothers. It was the last film Stanley Kubrick completed and released during his lifetime. He died in March 1999, 12 years after the film came out. The confusion around dates is worth clearing up because it places the film in its correct context. It arrived 1 year after Platoon won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, and the two films were immediately compared. Full Metal Jacket received a single Oscar nomination, Best Adapted Screenplay, and lost to The Last Emperor.
Right shoulder!
Detail 29. The title came from a gun catalog. The phrase Full Metal Jacket does not appear anywhere in Gustav Hasford's 1979 novel, The Short Timers, which the film is based on. Kubrick found the phrase while browsing a firearms catalog during pre-production. A full metal jacket is a type of bullet in which a harder metal casing surrounds a softer lead core, designed to increase penetration and reduce barrel fouling. Kubrick felt the phrase captured something essential about the film's central idea: soldiers as ammunition, human beings reduced to projectiles. He changed the title from The Short Timers specifically because he felt that title would mislead potential audiences.
It is a hard heart that kills. If your killer instincts...
Detail 28. Over 3,000 actors auditioned. Kubrick personally watched 800 tapes. Warner Brothers conducted one of the most extensive casting searches in the studio's history for Full Metal Jacket, soliciting audition tapes from actors across the United States and Canada. More than 3,000 performers submitted themselves on tape. Kubrick's staff screened most of them, but Kubrick personally sat down and watched approximately 800 of the tapes himself. For a filmmaker known for meticulous control over every creative decision, the scale of the search reflected how seriously he took the casting of every role, regardless of size.
Rafter Man. They're from Stars and Stripes. They'll make you famous.
Detail 27. Val Kilmer is the reason. Matthew Modine got the part. Matthew Modine was not on Kubrick's radar when casting began for Private Joker. Modine himself was not even aware the film was being made. He found out at a Sunset Boulevard diner while having breakfast with actor David Alan Grier. Val Kilmer was there, recognized Modine, and made it clear he resented him, telling Modine directly that he was sick of him and that Modine was now apparently getting Kubrick's film as well. Modine had no idea what he was talking about. He went home, called his manager, found out about the Kubrick production, sent over footage from his recent films Vision Quest and Birdie, and landed the role. Kilmer's hostility in a diner is the reason Joker is Matthew Modine.
Sir, no, sir! You little piece of shit, you look like a fucking worm. I bet it was you! Sir, no, sir!
Sir, I said it, sir!
Detail 26. Anthony Michael Hall was offered the role of Joker. Before Modine entered the picture, Breakfast Club actor Anthony Michael Hall was offered the role of Private Joker and turned it down. Bruce Willis was also in discussions for the role at an early stage. Arnold Schwarzenegger was offered the role of Animal Mother, the aggressive, heavily armed Marine in the Hugh sequences, but turned it down to make the Running Man instead. Denzel Washington was under consideration for the role of 8-Ball and has said publicly that he regrets not being part of the film. The cast that might have been is a considerable collection of names. Detail 25. R. Lee Ermey was hired as a technical advisor, not an actor. Ermey's path to playing Gunnery Sergeant Hartman did not begin with an acting audition. He was brought onto the production as a technical advisor, a real former Marine drill instructor who had served at Parris Island and completed 14 months of service in Vietnam to help Kubrick and the actors understand the authentic rhythms and demands of Marine training. The role of Hartman had already been cast. Tim Colseri was scheduled to play the drill instructor. When Ermey saw the early rehearsals and felt the performance was not meeting the standard required, he lobbied Kubrick directly for the role. Kubrick was skeptical at first. Ermey then made a 15-minute audition tape in which he delivered a continuous stream of improvised insults, without pause, without repetition, while being pelted with tennis balls and oranges. Kubrick watched it and gave him the part. Colseri was moved to the smaller role of the helicopter door gunner. Detail 24. Kubrick had never heard of the Rolling Stones. The soundtrack to the Vietnam-era sequences in Full Metal Jacket includes period rock and pop music that Kubrick selected by reviewing Billboard's lists of the top 100 hits for every year between 1962 and 1968. He considered a large number of songs, but found the dynamic range of much of the music too difficult to work around dialogue. When he encountered the Rolling Stones during this research process, he was unfamiliar with them. He later explained to collaborators that he had been so deeply immersed in Beethoven and Strauss while making A Clockwork Orange and 2001, A Space Odyssey, that rock and roll had simply passed him by. The Stones had, in fact, sought to be included in the soundtrack of A Clockwork Orange, but Kubrick had declined.
Questions here, Private, do you understand? Sir, yes, sir! Well, thank you very much. Can I be in charge for a while? Sir, yes, sir!
Detail 23. Ermey wrote 150 pages of insults. Approximately 50% of R. Lee Ermey's dialogue as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman was written or improvised by Ermey himself, a figure Kubrick confirmed publicly. Kubrick, who had a reputation for requiring actors to deliver every scripted syllable exactly as written, described this as the first time he had genuinely let an actor improvise since Peter Sellers on Dr. Strangelove in 1964. To prepare, Ermey compiled approximately 150 pages of original insult material. His performances were so consistently precise that Kubrick typically needed only 2 or 3 takes per scene, itself a remarkable statistic for a director whose shooting ratios were legendary. The single exception was the jelly donut scene, which Ermey said required 37 takes, to the point his voice periodically disappeared.
Private Pyle, why is your footlocker unlocked?
Sir, I don't know, sir!
Private Pyle, if there is...
Detail 22. Ermey was kept deliberately separate from the actors between takes. To ensure that the recruits' fear and disorientation around Hartman was genuine rather than performed, Kubrick kept Ermey and the actors playing recruits completely separated from the moment they arrived on set. Matthew Modine, Vincent D'Onofrio, and the others never met Ermey before filming began. Kubrick also ensured that Ermey did not fraternize with the actors during breaks between takes. The result was that the recruits were always encountering Hartman cold. No familiarity, no social context, no ability to anticipate what was coming. The wide-eyed, off-balance quality visible in the recruits' reactions throughout the boot camp sequences was not manufactured.
Counts in that movement you just executed.
Sir, 4 counts, sir!
What's the idea looking down in the chamber?
Sir, that is the guarantee that the private is not given.
Detail 21. D'Onofrio gained 70 pounds, breaking De Niro's record. To play Private Leonard Gomer Pyle, Lawrence Vincent D'Onofrio gained 70 pounds over the course of 7 months. This broke the existing record for the most weight gained for a film role, which had been held by Robert De Niro, who gained 60 pounds to play boxer Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull in 1980. After filming Wrapped, D'Onofrio spent 9 months losing the weight. He later told the New York Times that the physical transformation affected how people treated him throughout the process. Conversations changed, interactions changed, and the social experience of moving through the world at that weight, it gave him material for the character's interiority that no amount of acting preparation could have provided.
This is my rifle! There are many like it, but this...
Detail 20. D'Onofrio was a nightclub bouncer when he heard about the role. Before Vincent D'Onofrio came to Full Metal Jacket, he was working as a bouncer at a nightclub and had minimal acting experience. He ran into Matthew Modine, who told him about a role in the Kubrick film that might suit him. D'Onofrio rented a video camera, borrowed a set of army fatigues, and shot his own audition tape in his apartment. When the studio called to tell him he had won the part, D'Onofrio hung up. He assumed it was one of his friends playing a prank. They called back.
Officers in the Viet Cong, the other half have got TB. Be sure you only fuck the ones that cough.
Detail 19. The entire film was shot in England. Not one frame of Full Metal Jacket was filmed in the United States, despite the fact that the story is set in South Carolina and Vietnam. Kubrick, who had lived in England since the early 1960s and had a well-documented fear of flying, refused to travel to America for the production. The Marine boot camp at Parris Island, South Carolina, was recreated at Bassingbourn Barracks, a British territorial army base in Hertfordshire. The Vietnamese city of Hue was built at the derelict Beckton Gas Works on the south bank of the Thames in East London, an abandoned facility scheduled for demolition that was handed over to the production. To dress it as Vietnam, the crew imported 200 palm trees from Spain and brought plastic jungle foliage from Hong Kong. The French colonial architecture of the gasworks bore a strong resemblance to Vietnamese urban buildings of the 1960s, which was what drew Kubrick to the location over any other. During construction of the Hue set, the production discovered that toxic chemicals had leaked into the ground and were still present in the air at the site, a hazard the cast and crew worked around throughout filming. Detail 18. A Belgian army colonel lent Kubrick 4 tanks. The M41. Walker Bulldog tanks visible in the Hue. Sequences of the film were not sourced from a movie prop company or the British military. They were loaned to the production by a Belgian army colonel who was a devoted fan of Kubrick's films. The colonel provided 4 working M41 tanks out of personal enthusiasm. No contractual arrangement with the Belgian army as an institution was involved. The decision was the colonel's own. The tanks were transported to the Beckton site and used in the battle sequences.
Feels good, feels good, feels good, feels good, real good, real good, tastes good, mighty good, mighty good.
Detail 17. The Parris Island Barracks were a real military facility. The exterior boot camp sequences and barracks scenes were filmed at Bassingbourn Barracks in Hertfordshire, an active military installation that was made available to the production. Kubrick had a permanent set built inside the facility to serve as the interior of the Marine barracks. The special lens used during the barracks drill sequences, designed to keep every single recruit in the frame in sharp focus simultaneously, was custom built for the film. Kubrick's deliberate intention was that during the training sequences, no single recruit should be visually more prominent than any other. The lens made every face equally present.
Quickly, move it out, pile, move it out! You climb obstacles like old people fuck, you know that?
Detail 16. Ermey's car accident shut down production for 4.5 months. Halfway through the production schedule, R. Lee Ermey was driving alone late at night when his car skidded off the road in Epping Forest, east of London, and ended up in a ditch. He broke all the ribs on one side of his body and suffered serious injuries that would have been fatal had he not remained conscious and kept his headlights flashing. A passing motorist stopped to help, which, Kubrick noted, was not a common occurrence in Epping Forest at that hour. Ermey was out of the production for approximately 4.5 months. When he returned, Kubrick found that the recovery period had actually improved his performance, and the scenes involving Hartman were largely reshot. Kubrick later said the accident had been, in some perverse sense, beneficial to the film. Detail 15. The hair clippers were wrong. Until Ermey called an old Marine. When Kubrick examined the hair clippers being used during the opening barracks shaving sequence, he found them unsatisfactory. The sound and visual effect were wrong, and the heads being shaved did not look as they should. Ermey made a call to an old Marine contact and asked what clippers were actually used at Paris Island for recruit processing. The answer was that the Marines used clippers designed for grooming French poodles. Kubrick sourced the correct equipment and reshot the scene. The opening sequence of Full Metal Jacket, the row of young men having their hair removed, uses the actual instrument employed by the United States Marine Corps. Detail 14. Kubrick crashed his wife's car into a 6-foot ditch during a location scout. During a location scouting drive with Ermey and cinematographer Douglas Milsom, Kubrick was at the wheel of his wife's new SUV and became so absorbed in describing to Milsom what he envisioned shooting at a particular spot that he drove the vehicle off the road and into a 6-foot ditch. The SUV rolled onto its side. No one was seriously injured. According to Milsom, as the three men climbed out of the wreckage, Kubrick had not stopped talking about the scene he wanted to film.
Do you feel dizzy? Do you feel faint?
Detail 13. Joker's name. Tag references the first American killed in Vietnam. On his uniform shirt at Paris Island, Private Joker's name tag reads J.T. Davis. This is a deliberate reference to Specialist James T. Davis of Livingston, Tennessee, who is widely considered the first American serviceman killed in the Vietnam War. He died on December 22, 1961. The detail was worked into the film by co-writer Gustav Hasford, whose semi-autobiographical novel, The Short Timers, drew directly on his experience as a Marine combat correspondent in Vietnam. The J.T. Davis reference is visible on screen, but passes without comment.
Hi, Joker.
Detail 12. Private Pyle's bathroom. Stair is the Kubrick stair. The shot in which Private Pyle stands in the bathroom in the darkness, rifle in hand, eyes angled upward from a slightly downward tilted head, the shot that precedes the film's first act climax, is among the most discussed images in Kubrick's filmography. It is considered the definitive example of what critics and film scholars have called the Kubrick stare, a specific camera angle and character posture, low and slightly upward, that Kubrick returned to across multiple films to convey a state of fixed, focused, and dangerous internal resolve. The stare appears in A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, and elsewhere. In Full Metal Jacket, it belongs to D'Onofrio and arrives at the film's most precise moment of rupture.
One funky. Oh, yeah. Hey, you boys won #1, Funky.
Detail 11. Vivian Kubrick composed the score under a fake name. The film's original score, the electronic synthesizer-driven music that runs through the hue sequences, was composed by Vivian Kubrick, Stanley's daughter. She is credited in the film not under her own name, but as Abigail Mead. The name was derived from Abbott's Mead, the mansion in Borehamwood, Hertfordshire, where the Kubrick family had lived from 1965 to 1979. The score was composed primarily using a Fairlight CMI synthesizer and a synclavier. Vivian Kubrick also shot footage on set during production and co-produced the promotional single Full Metal Jacket, I Wanna Be Your Drill Instructor, which sampled Ermey's drill cadences and reached number 2 on the UK charts.
So that it slides perfect.
Detail 10. Kubrick's voice is in the film. In the hue sequences, Cowboy uses a radio to request tank support from command, reaching a voice identified as Hotel. That voice belongs to Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick recorded the radio dialogue himself, rather than having it dubbed by a professional voice actor. His presence is audible in the finished film, though it is essentially anonymous. The majority of audiences who have seen Full Metal Jacket have heard Kubrick's actual voice without realizing it.
Feel like spending some of your hard-earned money?
And you keep thinking that you'll never
You know,
get
half
burned.
these goo quarters are...
Detail 9. Kubrick's daughter also appears on screen. In addition to composing the score, Vivian Kubrick makes a brief on-screen cameo during the Vietnam sequences. She appears in the scene where Joker and Rafterman encounter a mass open grave. She is visible wielding a motion picture camera, filming into the grave. As with her score credit, her appearance is not credited or identified in the film. She is present in it invisibly, in 2 different ways. Detail 8. The soccer ball in a deleted scene was a human head. A scene was filmed and cut from the final edit in which a group of Marines were shown playing soccer. The shot was removed from the film when it became apparent, and was not apparent until the footage was reviewed, that the object the Marines were kicking was not a soccer ball, but a human head. Whether this was a prop or an actual skull was not specified in accounts of the decision. The scene was cut regardless.
Shit, man, you're my favorite turn. Come on,
Detail 7. Joker was originally going to die at the end. In Kubrick's original conception of the ending, Private Joker was killed in the film's final sequence. Matthew Modine changed this during a creative conversation with Kubrick by making a case for why Joker should survive. His argument was that a soldier who has watched his friends die and has been forced to kill a teenager, specifically the teenage sniper in the film's climax, should have to live with what he has experienced. Death would end it. Survival would not. Kubrick heard the argument, agreed with it, and changed the ending. He reportedly made the decision on the spot. Detail 6. The sniper who kills several characters is a teenage girl. The figure responsible for the casualties in the film's second-half climax, the sniper who pins down and kills members of the platoon in the rubble of Hue, is revealed to be a young Vietnamese girl. The role was played by a Vietnamese-born actress named Ngoc Le. The decision to make the sniper a teenage girl, rather than the hardened enemy fighter the Marines expect, was present in Hasford's source novel. In the film, she asks to be finished off rather than left alive and suffering. Joker is the one who does it. The confrontation forms the film's moral and emotional center.
Your days of finger banging old Mary Jane Rottencrotch through her purty pink panties.
Detail 5. The boot camp sequences were filmed after the Vietnam sequences. The production schedule ran in reverse narrative order. The Vietnam sequences at Becton Gas Works were filmed first. The Paris Island boot camp sequences, the film's entire first half, were filmed after the battle scenes were already complete. This was partly a practical matter of scheduling and location availability. The consequence, largely invisible on screen, is that D'Onofrio had already completed his transformation and weight gain for the boot camp sequences by the time he shot the physically demanding battle material, meaning the production timeline and the character's physical arc moved in opposite directions.
An officer. How about a general?
Joker, maybe you'd like our guys to read the paper and feel bad.
Detail 4. Full Metal Jacket was the first Kubrick film edited on a computer. The editing of Full Metal Jacket was conducted digitally, using a computer-based editing system rather than the traditional method of physically splicing celluloid by hand. This made it the first Kubrick film to be assembled that way. Kubrick, who had spent decades working with physical film in cutting rooms, adapted to the new system for this production. The shift to computer editing was beginning to move through the industry in the mid-1980s, and Full Metal Jacket is among the earlier major features to have been cut that way.
1, 2, 3, 4, I love Rico. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Detail 3. The jelly donut scene required 37 takes. The scene in which Gunnery Sergeant Hartman discovers that Private Pyle has hidden a jelly donut in his footlocker and then forces the entire platoon to do push-ups while Pyle eats is the scene that took longest for Ermey to complete. He had noted that his scenes typically required only 2 or 3 takes. The jelly donut scene required 37. Ermey attributed the difficulty to the sustained vocal demands. The scene required continuous shouting over an extended period, and his voice periodically gave out during takes. For D'Onofrio, lying on the floor eating donuts through 37 takes over the course of a day, the experience was its own kind of endurance.
Well, I got a joke for you. I'm gonna tear you a new asshole.
Detail 2. Modine kept a diary through the entire production. Matthew Modine kept a personal diary throughout the filming of Full Metal Jacket, documenting the experience of making the film from the inside, the shoots, the relationship with Kubrick, the conditions on set, the other cast members, the length and strangeness of a Kubrick production. The diary was eventually published in 2005 as Full Metal Jacket Diary, accompanied by photographs Modine had taken during the shoot. In it, he wrote about coming to regard Kubrick almost as a father figure during the years of production, and about calling Kubrick after the film was released, only to find that Kubrick had already moved on entirely to his next project and had no interest in looking backward.
I wanted to meet interesting and stimulating people of an ancient culture and kill them.
Detail 1. The production was so long, that Matthew Modine's child was born and turned one during filming. The Full Metal Jacket shoot was, by any standard, extraordinarily prolonged. Vincent D'Onofrio described the timeline in an interview. During the course of the production, lead actor Matthew Modine got married, conceived a child with his wife. The child was born and then turned 1 year old, all before the film wrapped. Kubrick was notorious for extended shoots, for reshoots, for reconsidering and rebuilding, and for a working process that could not be rushed by anyone or anything. The film that began production in the summer of 1985 was not delivered to Warner Brothers until 1987. For the actors, it was not simply a film shoot. It was a period of their lives. 30 details hiding inside one of the most closely watched war films ever made. If you found something worth knowing, hit that like button and subscribe. There is a lot more where this came from.